Board meeting to order. Roll call, please.
President Byrne.
Here.
Trustees Hebda. Cook.
Here.
Markwart.
Here.
Schultz.
Here.
Schwartz.
Here.
Williams.
Here.
Motion carries. Of course, we have a quorum present. Would everybody please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, are there any citizens that wish to address the board tonight on any matter other than what's on committee of the whole? If not, what's the first item here? There are no reports tonight.
Nope.
Okay, so the first item is the omnibus vote agenda. Is there a motion to approve items A through M?
So made.
Second?
There's a motion is second.
Question?
Yeah, sure.
Under A1,
Yeah.
are all parties willing to stipulate to A1?
Golf course report? Okay, let's check her out. What's your concern?
Conflict of interest.
Since
What
it's
is
just
it?
a report and there's no action on that particular item, it's fine.
Okay. Gene.
Huh?
Jeannie.
Well, yeah, well, that's ongoing.
I know. I just,
Okay,
just came to mind.
yeah, okay.
No, it's the next one.
Hold on, hold the phone. Okay, and I have a question about, let me see here. Oh, God, where's it at? Green Meadows subdivision. It is, I know this property is what, gonna change hands in the not too distant future? So, the Vernon Hills 16 LLC, is that still, what's the guy's name from Town and Country Homes? Brennan?
Peter Brennan, they will still be involved, as I understand it.
Okay, and does this address, we still have what? Is it a letter of credit or was it a
Yes,
bond?
cash from letter of credit.
And what is that going to be used for in this project?
Well, it's been used to complete the improvements. I mean, Dave can answer the details on that.
Okay, is there any other improvements that have to be done?
We called the guarantee. We completed the public or the infrastructure that made sense. We did not have the light poles added. There's a transformer in the backyard that the cables go to. So because of house construction, we didn't install those. Bike path connection from the path going into the subdivision. And the bond does provide for paying them towards the landscape improvements that the bond was called for, the lighting that I talked about, the pathway that I talked about, and those are the major things.
Well,
that
I was
we
just
covered.
going to ask, and then does that include the ingress and egress? You know,
The driveways itself?
Yeah.
Or,
mean,
it does include some money towards the driveways.
so how much money is there still?
The total bond amount we have left is over $300,000. And the remaining improvements are closer to $100,000. So we have sufficient money to make sure this happens.
Now, the question is, what happened, is that, I mean, at the end of the day and all the improvements have been done, or is that our money then?
No, it's not.
Okay.
We have to determine whether it goes back to the bank. If the bank has already liquidated the assets supporting the letter of credit, then it would go back to the original developer, or depending on the arrangement, when the new developer took over, the new developer may end up with it.
Okay.
That we still have to decide, but it can't go.
We haven't
far.
done one of these in a while.
No, we haven't had to.
One prior in Greg's Landing that we had to address, I think that might have been Rembrandt Homes at the time.
Oh, was it? I remember years ago, there was one,
I'm thinking.
it was the infamous one that was.
Oh, yes.
Was that over in Cambridge or no?
It was.
I don't think we pulled anybody's letter, or
No.
maybe three
Been a
times
long
in the
time.
history of the village, so.
Right.
How about that, Larry? You think, you
United-
wanna do the over-under on that, or?
That-
Yeah,
Oh, yeah?
Cypress Point.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's maybe 4?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think we've done 2 since I've been
3
here.
or 4.
All right.
Not that
Okay,
many.
well,
Not
I
that
just
many.
thought I'd ask, you know.
Not
Okay.
that many at all.
All right. All right, is there a motion to approve the omnibus vote agenda?
Yes.
There was a motion.
Oh, motion second, okay, roll call.
Trustees Cook,
Aye.
Markwart,
Aye.
Schultz,
Aye.
Schwartz,
Aye.
Williams,
Aye.
Hebda.
Motion carries. Okay. All right. Approval of Kemper voucher list of bills dated November 5th, 2013 in the amount of $10,237.64. Is there a motion to approve?
So made.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion is second. Comments, questions, corrections, deletions? If not, roll call, please.
Trustees Markwart,
Aye.
Schultz,
Aye.
Schwartz,
Abstain.
Williams,
Aye.
Hebda, Cook.
Aye.
Yeah, and I'd vote aye for the record. Motion carries. Okay. Approval of the October 15th, 2013 board meeting minutes. Is there a motion to approve?
Second.
Motion is second. Comments, questions, deletions, corrections? If none, roll call, please.
Trustees Schultz,
Aye.
Schwartz,
Aye.
Williams,
Aye.
Hebda, Cook,
Aye.
Markwart.
Aye.
Motion carries. New business or communication to come before the board?
Just probably this Saturday, the grand opening of the fitness center
Right.
from 1 to 4. They're gonna have a lot of stuff going on there, and
Yeah,
they've done a lot of nice stuff with the building.
the Vernon
I
Hills
mean, when
Park
you walk in the
District.
door, yeah, Vernon Hills Park District at the Lakeview Fitness Center, when you walk in the door, it's obvious that it's a lot better place and been remodeled, and things look good. Yeah, looks good. And the grand opening is this Saturday, the 9th, from 1 to 4.
Nice.
Okay, any other new business or communication to come before the board? All right. If not, is there are we going into closed session?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, sir,
Personnel,
for-
right?
Yeah, personnel and then litigation and potential litigation.
Okay. All right, that'll be done after committee of the whole, and we will not come back out, discuss or take any action on anything. Is that accurate?
Correct, sir.
Okay. All right, is there a motion to adjourn the, village board meeting and go into committee of the whole?
So made.
Second.
Motion is second, roll call.
Trustees Schwartz,
Aye.
Williams,
Aye.
Hebda, Cook,
Aye?
Markwart,
Aye.
Schultz.
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, I'd like to call the committee of the whole meeting to order. First item is approval of the committee of the whole meeting minutes of October 15th, 2013.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Motion is second. Comments or questions, corrections, deletions? If none, roll call.
Trustees Hebda, Cook,
Aye?
Markwart,
Aye.
Schultz,
Aye.
Schwartz,
Aye.
Williams.
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay. First item is presentation of concept plans for a new access drive from Milwaukee Avenue to Jason's Deli and on the border properties. Are the petitioners here?
Your Honor, before we get going, the key development partners, and this is a group along with representatives from Jason's, are here to talk about this access I just wanted to touch on something real quick. As you may recall, or a number of you will recall, the regional PUD for this, which created the AMC Theater, former Carasota's property, and the 3 outlots showed this access as a part of that approval. And it was actually a write-in only that would provide access from Milwaukee Avenue. The driveway entered the property and ran along the common property line between lots 3 and 4 to provide access, and it actually terminated into the internal access driveway that shared between the 3 outlots and the theater property. Although it was approved, they did not get IDOT approval at that time. So the easement that was shown on the original plans was not included as a part of the recorded plat. So there is no easement that would allow this access to be shared between the 2 properties. It's a fairly complex set of actions that will have to take place. But basically what they'll have to do is there'll have to be an agreement between lots 3 and 4 to allow the access, and possibly AMC, depending on what the plat says. There's an amendment of the RPUD regarding the approved site and landscape plans for both lots that'll have to take place. IDOT will have to grant approval. The final plat will have to be amended to create an easement over lots 3 and 4. And then potentially there's approval from Continental Executive Park Association to allow this access from Milwaukee Avenue. The plat indicates that direct access is currently prohibited. So there's additional information that will have to be found out through discussions with Continental Executive Park. I guess with that, I'll let him speak, and then I'll come back to you with regards to some ideas.
Yeah, I mean, who actually owns this site?
Key Development Partners.
And who are you?
I'm Chris Sotos. I'm the owner of the property,
Of what property?
of the Jason's Deli, Vernon Hills location. So,
Okay, just that location.
yes,
And-
we,
so what's the footprint of that whole, your plat is surveyed? I mean, you know, how many feet deep, wide, blah, 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 you know?
We can get that.
What is it? You own it.
roughly 50,000 square feet, and
So
about,
what's the frontage onto Milwaukee?
I don't have,
Not that much. I mean, what is it? Probably under 100 feet.
it's wider than 100 feet. It's somewhat rectangular, but not by a lot. So I'm going to guess it's 160, 180 feet wide.
Yeah.
So we bought the site in 2006. It's the former Hooters site. We put Jason's Deli into tenancy. They opened in November of 2008.
250 feet.
I won't speak much for them, but maybe somewhat of a soft opening. They've struggled with sales in this location. This concept of access has been discussed for a couple of years. John has encouraged us to work on other approaches, both within the store itself. Jason's Deli's done a nice job of increasing their catering, but they've struggled within the store itself to, to drive traffic.
Well, what does staff advise you as far as because of the proximity from the light? Is that going to be an issue? Okay. Is this just a right turn in?
You're proposing a right-in, right-out.
No,
Tra-
right in.
No, that's
We-
plat, go up
Okay.
upwards.
So what we've done is, this issue's a couple years old. We've worked with a traffic consultant, Louis Abuna of KLOA, who's put it in front of IDOT. George Gutterly, I believe, is the IDOT reviewer. He is amenable to it. I believe over the years, as Milwaukee's kind of filled in, it's not uncommon. There are some curb cuts, very similar, some right-in, right-outs further south by CDW. Across from CDW, there's a couple, one for the apartment complex, the park, I believe, and further up to the retail north of that apartment complex. So I believe he feels like it's appropriate at this time. But in that time span, we were asked to try other approaches. We tried through Kimco to the north, Fashion Square. They said no. So after 2.5 years, we're back here requesting some help.
So to answer your question from a traffic perspective, they're proposing a right in, right out. There's a deceleration lane, so it'll move people off of the roadway to make that turn into the site. Once you get into the site, I'm not concerned with stacking distance back onto Milwaukee Avenue because they have that deceleration lane. So coming in, I don't see any issues. Exiting onto Milwaukee Avenue, I think that'll work well. People may have some difficulty getting all the way over if they're trying to get into the left turn lane, but I think they'll work through that well. I don't see large issues from a traffic standpoint on Milwaukee Avenue. Certainly, once you get onto the site, there'll have to be some signage to direct people who has the right-of-way once you get into the site, so people in the parking lot are stopping, allowing those people off of Milwaukee Avenue.
Is there an elevation change there?
There is.
Well, how's that going to be addressed?
They're going to have to work through that and submit engineering plans to show that the slopes will work in that
Yeah, 'cause I was
area.
going to say with the weather changing, the guy that's the manager's going to be out there with the salt, it could get, it's got to be flattened out there,
That's why there's 3 of them here.
Anybody live in Long Grove? Anybody know where Long Grove is?
I do.
Yeah, do they still have the salt bin and you go out there if you're the first one that slides through the intersection in the morning? You lay the salt down if you haven't hit a tree?
I think that's sand.
Okay, fine. Trustee Cook.
Dave, roughly how long is that deceleration bay? Because I see you've got what do you think it'll stack, about 4, 5?
We're really at a concept level. I don't know all the specifics of the dimensions, et cetera. Should the board approve it, we'll work with them, we'll work with IDOT, make sure it meets all the engineering standards.
But in the
All right.
end, IDOT has to approve the access off of Milwaukee.
IDOT will have to approve the new curb cut access onto this site. As John said earlier, the plat does restrict access, so they need to obtain IDOT's approval amongst a few other local
And
ones.
you'd split
Well,
the
and then I
cost
would
with
assume
on the
looking at
border?
this,
You would split the cost with on the border? Who's-
I'm not sure how much On the Border will contribute. We've approached them, they were interested. I think they're a little bit more of a dinner business, which the crowd is maybe a little bit more patient and forgiving. Jason's Deli is a heavy lunch business, and I think that is the time issues factor a little bit more so. We're frankly not worried about the cost, not that we're flippant about it, but we're really trying to keep Jason's Deli happy. They seem to be a very good citizen, and they've been patient in working with us for a couple of years. And they've done a pretty good job of pushing the catering. What they're really suffering on is what you call four-wall sales, coming into that store.
My other concern that I had a couple other things. When it comes in, then it looks like, based on this drawing, it's then going to come in and hit a hammerhead and go both ways. Is that?
Yes.
Depending upon how far in that is, I would have a little bit of concern about, is there a way that it could go further in before they have to turn off? Because the problem is what you're probably going to have to do, just because we're early, but it would probably be that the cross traffic would have to stop, allowing incoming traffic to constantly have the right-of-way. That doesn't work all the time. The perfect example is over right off of Milwaukee by where when you come into by the Dick's Sporting Goods, as you're coming in, the incoming traffic has the right of way, and I can't tell you how many near misses I see because people coming toward 60 think that the people coming off 60 have to stop. And I can't tell you, even though there are signs there that say incoming traffic does not have a stop sign, it creates a bit of a problem. So the longer you can make that distance before they have to fan off to the left or right, the better it'll be, because there's going to be a certain amount of that, because
The longer the
people
throw.
just have trouble reading those kind of signs. I don't know why, but they do. They assume that the other guy's going to stop, and I've seen a lot of near misses there. I'm talking about by the the Christian Family Bookstore there by where Sleepy's is going in.
The Walmart area also adds to the problem.
Yeah, and all 3 of those are supposed to stop, and the incoming can go wherever they want. And
Nobody does.
And anybody who comes in and makes a left to head toward McDonald knows that
Right.
you may have somebody coming at you that thinks you got to stop. So the further this can be off the street, probably the better.
Okay.
But basically, I like the idea because I think it'll help both restaurants there in terms of people seeing them and being able to get in.
You're right on the time frame of getting people in and getting them out at lunchtime. My staff drives up from Wheeling to come there and get sandwiches at lunchtime. So they're in a hurry to get back.
The wrong way.
Trustee Schultz?
Yeah, I don't share the same concerns as trustee Cook because that volume is predicated on the Walmart traffic, the Dick's traffic, and all those other stores. This is a lot less traffic. So I think your position here isn't all that unreasonable. There needs to be the appropriate signs to stop and provide, the incoming traffic, the ability to either go to OTB or U. With regard to your site, yeah, I really want to see you succeed because the lack of this is probably the final stake that went in the heart of Hooters. Not that they're, needed anything. Hooters had, their food was, I'm not a fan of Hooters. So, there really wasn't a whole lot there that I really, really needed to see. So, bottom line is, I'm all in favor of this here, improvement. And whatever we can do with regard to getting you the help with IDOT, I would like to recommend to staff that we do whatever. The concern that the good mayor brought up, though, about ensuring that your elevation change is a smoother transition, because if it's anything like the one that leading into Dick's and right there at the Dunkin' Donuts, that's the worst
Oh, it's horrible.
elevation change we've got in town.
Yeah.
And so you've got to do better than that.
Okay.
think it's a speed bump.
Yeah, it is
No,
for
it's a speed
tailpipes.
ditch
Yeah.
as opposed to a speed bump.
So anyway, I'm all in favor of supporting you in whatever way we can to get this done. I truly realize that this may give you enough to get you with the rest of the pack, so that you're not the guys that they're pointing to at the annual meeting, right?
Well, I'm very encouraged, by hearing this. We've been almost in town for almost 5 years, and, we want to be in Vernon Hills. This is our customer, and we want to continue to serve this community. But we haven't made a profit since we've been here.
Oh, wow.
And, obviously the company continues to invest in this center and continues to keep us moving forward. But this is a critical part of our business that, if we're not granted this, I'm not really sure where we're going to go from there. But it's encouraging to hear, each one of you kind of talk in favor of this, and hopefully this is something that we can get done and give us a chance to, to move our business forward here in Vernon Hills.
Yep.
Now, is there any discussions between you guys and on the border?
We put it in front of On the Border. They were happy to participate. We didn't get into cost. They weren't as excited to share the checkbook. But it's important for us to keep Jason's Deli happy, so I kind of put the money issue aside and wanted to figure out what we can do to make Jason's Deli happy. Then I'll go back down the border. So I don't know what they're going to do. They're
Yeah.
bigger, they're corporate.
And they have what, about the same footprint as you do?
Probably a bigger store.
Yeah.
It's probably close,
Okay.
though. It's pretty close.
Okay, well, all right. So the direction to go tonight is forward,
Yeah. Hang in there.
I don't know what I
I
don't know
mean,
what we're voting on
Dave and
tonight, other than,
there's nothing to vote on. Bob needs to do his disclaimer.
yeah.
This is my speaking part. This is concept review, concept approval. It gives you a sense of where the village board is on the issue, but it's not binding on the board. You could go through the process, and you're not guaranteed success, but you certainly got a good flavor. You take that out and make of it what you will.
Right. I understand.
so-
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, we appreciate it.
Where's Jason's from? I mean, what,
From Beaumont, Texas.
okay,
That's where our headquarters is.
okay,
So we've been in business since 1976. So.
okay. All right. Yeah, I mean, we'll work with you. I mean, IDOT could be, could be problematic. I mean, as far as them moving quickly, what kind of anticipation date
Well,
you
we're
have for
hitting,
kind of doing this, you know?
Spring.
I mean,
I suspect you work through your plans, work with village staff, work with IDOT. We could work towards an approval for construction season in the spring.
yeah, okay.
asphalt plants are closing, this is gonna be spring, so we have time.
Yeah.
But IDOT's been favorable.
Yeah, okay.
Good.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank
All right. Take
Take
care.
care.
Yeah. Okay. Who's here tonight for this liquor license change?
If I can speak to that somewhat.
Yeah.
I went and I saw Emmanuel from Manny's Mini Mart.
Yeah, sure.
He had a doctor's appointment with his son. I told him that the way I thought things would work, if he got here by 7:30, it would be appropriate. Needless to say, it's 7:40, and he's not here yet, so he may have not been able to make it. So he is not here.
Well, I don't, it doesn't matter, does it? I mean,
No.
I mean.
We're looking at changing from the original,
Right.
right?
Well, yeah, I mean, the square footage issue, which, is something we don't want to, turn every little convenience store into a liquor store.
Well, basically, though, as I read this, the proposal that Easy Family Mini Mart Incorporated LLC, whatever they are, their proposal would still work within this particular ordinance. I'm not familiar with their total square footage,
No,
but they
not
were
with the
proposing a full wall.
Yeah, not with the proposal. I guess to recap, I guess and Mike, jump in.
Well-
The big issue is, how do you vision this? Do you vision, like we talked a number of weeks ago, liquor store being a larger entity, 10, 20,000 square feet? That's one issue off to the side. Then the other issue is to amend the ordinance to look at 3,400 square feet that, like the mayor said, would be a little bit larger store, but not these small convenience stores. And again, that's another issue. And then finally, the idea that the chief and I talked about it, and John and Mike Atkinson, about the idea that for a smaller convenience store, which would have liquor, to keep that liquor, in a secure area behind the cashier, within the counter area of what we typically would see as a convenience store, so that, reduction in the possibility of shoplifting, that type of thing, for smaller bottles of liquor.
And
So that was what we were thinking about.
And to that end, I just I made it my purpose to stop at a bunch of convenience stores throughout Wisconsin as I've been traveling around up there. And a lot of them, basically, they have a bookcase with a glass front on it. And the bookcase is full of just half pints and pints. No fifths, no quarts, no 1500s, no 750s. It's just pints and half pints. And they're not even behind the counter, but they're behind a glass, and there's a lock on those glass doors, so that the cashier has to come out from behind the counter, go over to that cabinet, open it up, acquire X number of the particular products, and then locks it back up again and goes back. That's what I've been seeing as a common practice, not completely common. Most still have it behind the counter. A lot have it behind the counter in a rack, bookcase, whatever, shelving. But again, they're only selling the half pints and pints. They're not selling.
Right. Trustee Markwart?
Yeah, my concern is having a candy store with liquor. That's how I look at it. I'd actually prefer I know we can go by square footage and all that, a separate facility, separate building, separate facility for it. I can understand, but you're bringing in the 7-Eleven, I know it'd come up, it's by the school, the kids go in there. I don't know, I don't think,
You got Walmart right across, Walgreens right across the street. They're closer to the school.
yeah, they are, but it's not, it's a pharmacy, technically, not a,
It's more of a.
You mean an apothecary?
yeah.
They're, Walgreens
So-
has become as much a convenience store as a pharmacy now, yeah.
So it's just it's a difference though, but I think the kids don't hang out at a Walgreens, they hang out at a 7-Eleven.
Do they, chief?
They stop in there and get their pop and candy. but
I think I would agree with that. They hang out more at the 7-Eleven than they would Walgreens. 7-Eleven caters more to kids with the Slurpees, the ices, the ice cream,
But I mean,
It's the older crowd that hangs
hot
out.
dogs.
Because they're waiting to get their prescription filled.
Hey,
yeah, hey, you got a problem with that, or?
Hey, I'm one of them, so, hey, I'm one of them.
Actually, I see more kids at the Starbucks
Yeah,
than I
bet.
do at the 7-Eleven.
Yeah, because there's the Wi-Fi, you know.
Right.
Well, with that said, I mean, you know, what our, okay, I'm the one who, you know, is the fly in the ointment here as far as, I went in there one day, and, you know, Manny was chatting me up, and I said, hey, you know, if you, the storefront's vacant up front, you know, if you want to try to figure something out there, and that's where, you know, we're coming up kind of with the 3,400. I don't necessarily want, you know, whatever number of convenience stores we have, and then this one opening up post haste possibly across the street. It's been closed for years. That, you know, the whole place is you know, a liquor store, you know, and or half the space is in a 2,000 square foot facility, you know, and so I thought there was a certain segregation here in mind between, this is where you go buy the beer, wine, and spirits, and then, you know, here's your convenience store, and then there was gonna be, you know, the common pass-through, and,
Well,
I mean, if we want to go in a totally different direction, you know, so be it. But, you know, that's where this kind of all evolved from.
Right.
And it wasn't to do it, you know, in every, you know, tiny space that, you know, is the candy store, as Mike says, but.
Well, if I could suggest, maybe we define the products. In other words, you know, I'm seeing convenience stores or some equivalent thereof being half pints and pints, and that's all they're
I see
selling.
what you're saying, yeah. You
So
you buy
it-
some beer and some wine.
Yeah, and, you know, a half pint to put on your hip, to, you know, have a couple of shooters or whatever. That's kind of what you're getting out of that. But what I guess I'm saying is that if we don't allow them to carry half pints and pints and only carry minimum 750 milliliter, now it becomes a liquor store per se. That won't make them happy because they're looking, probably at the customer that's looking at a half pint or a pint to go with the 12-pack of beer. So, you know,
Okay. All right, well, trustee
called beer
Cook.
chaser?
Well, I originally, when this first came up, Mayor, I was right with you about the separate space and that, but after talking to council and Mike and Chief, I'm more convinced that I believe this idea of if we do go with, and I agree with you, that's kind of the thing that I was envisioning, but definitely having it behind the counter where it has to be accessed by the salesperson, or by the clerk, as opposed to the customer actually getting it, is actually more secure than what we were talking about when we were talking about a whole separate, you know, space. And in talking with staff and chief and that, I've become more convinced that that's what I'd like to see, the liquor only be displayed behind the cashier's counter and has to be handled by the cashier only. And I also, I do believe, yeah, you're probably right, that most of those convenience stores would rather do the smaller liquor bottles, and I would think we would want
But
to
do you
put that
open
in
it
too.
up then to everybody?
yes. I think
Well,
you'd
we
almost
don't have,
to.
I mean, I would like to leave in the the, what separates out the gas station and that. But yeah, and one of the other things was because like Easy Mart and that down there, is one of the things that's going to create a lot of business is all the hotels and stuff in Lincolnshire and that. So, I think it's I see it as less of a problem because like you, I was looking around at the number of places that do have it, and there are more than I originally had thought. And if it's secure enough that it's behind the counter, I don't see it as much of a problem as I did originally.
All right, I'm throwing this out here. I'm confused because we were never for any type of liquor and convenience stores, and now we're talking about Manny's trying to set up some type of a liquor store, but it had to be separate, and now all of a sudden we're talking about ordinances with liquor
that
and
can
convenience stores, which I thought we were against, so.
Exactly.
Well, I guess the other side of it is, okay, if somebody wants to open up a liquor store in something like Manny's, you just want to make it a liquor store, what language do we have or parameters to work with
Well, I think
in
we've
the
been telling
existing
Manny's for
ordinance?
years, go back and open a liquor store.
Well, but I
Right.
have problems
I mean-
differentiating between this kind of a store and Walgreens, which quite frankly is as much a convenience store as any other store I've been in. I mean,
No,
Yeah.
I
well,
disagree.
have you been in there lately? It is, it is
I
all,
do practically
it is all
every day.
sundries. Well,
You can
it is not a drugstore.
groceries.
Are they making hot dogs in there?
No.
And the rollers?
No. What I'm talking about is you go in there and it's food and sundries
Well,
and,
it's a small grocery store. to
yeah.
Yeah.
The department in there.
And that's all convenience stores.
But I
small
don't think
grocery
that's
store.
what
Just
people
section
think
it.
of in Walgreens. You think of it, from a pharmaceutical standpoint, And now they just reintroduced back in the liquor component. What did they have, beer, just beer for a while?
They got rid of
They had-
everything.
They got rid of
They got rid of everything
because
for a while.
some of the family members had a problem.
Yeah.
And so it was a family decision.
Oh,
But
okay.
now it was a corporate decision to reintroduce it again because
Yeah.
the family doesn't.
And I can
control it.
remember the stores, that growing up that had it, it was kind of a segregated area.
It was a
Oh,
separate,
Right.
You know what I mean?
separate
It was
area.
within the building.
Exactly.
Right.
And that's where I was kind of coming from with
Well, even the
Manny's,
Walgreens,
but-
it was over by Dominic's,
I
it
think
was
though,
separate.
maybe Chief knows this.
But
I
that
think
was their
part-
way of accommodating, putting the booze behind the clerk.
Right.
Yeah.
Because the clerk was at the door for that separate room.
And I think also the separate room idea was when there were blue laws and you couldn't sell alcohol before noon on Sundays, and you had 24-hour operations. And so, as you may recall, a lot of those there was like the accordion door across
The
that
lockdown.
section.
Actually-
Now they integrated, I'm sure they sell a lot more, integrating it, as Trustee Cook said, with the rest of the store.
In-
But
in
I agree with
Wisconsin,
Jeannie, though, this is not what we started off
Yeah, that's
trying to do.
Yeah, in Wisconsin, a
so-
grocery store can't sell liquor after 9 o'clock at night, so they have a lot of accordions that they stretch out around their liquor section there to close it off. And they've also got programmed in a register that if they try, and it's 9 and 1 second, and they try to swipe it across there, it won't register. It'll give them,
And some have buzzers on the coolers and
Right.
different things, so you have to be buzzed in.
This is in Wisconsin?
yeah.
Yeah, I've seen it in Illinois, too.
Okay, go back to it
Wherever you
again.
want to control
I agree
you-
with Jeannie, this is not what we wanted to do.
Right.
It's not what we started off doing. I think we should throw it out and we'll talk about it again down the road.
I
I'm
agree
not
with
in
you.
favor of doing this at all.
And I probably also agree with Jeannie and Bob on the same thing. I just,
The only reason that
No, this is not what we intended.
Right, right. I agree with, that the prior boards, their intent was not to allow any hard
Our
liquor.
board, I'm talking about our board.
Well, we never really came to a direct vote, but the consensus always was that it was not going to be unanimous, for sure, to allow it. I guess the only thing that really has changed here is that since the downturn in the economy, the return to normalcy has been difficult for some of these small business owners, and they're looking at this as one additional revenue source. And, you know, how supportive are we of the small business owners
So the
here?
return to normalcy is, okay, we're endorsing alcohol. That makes sense.
Well, it's.
No, I'm sorry, Jim, I disagree with you, dear.
That's when they turned number running in the city of Chicago into what now the state calls the lottery.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, it was running numbers,
Well, they still
and it
do.
was illegal.
They still do
I
that.
was gonna say, what are you talking about?
wanna play
It's
the
still
numbers
called
and
running
it's
numbers,
sure
and
they
it's
got-
still
you can
going on
find
in
some,
Chicago.
you know.
Why do you think we live out here, not in Chicago?
You know, okay, well, anyway.
Anyway.
You know, with regard to, you know, the 2,000 square foot store, you know, that was never my intent. And the only reason I brought it up was, you know, basically, if the owner of the convenience store was basically gonna go into another space and segregate it. So that would apply
Right.
to anybody and everybody in town, and it would apply right across the street if somebody comes in or somebody wants to build another one, you know?
Well, if it went to a minimum of 3,400, you'd be eliminating the two that
Sure you would. Yeah, yeah, well, you know,
trustee Schwartz and trustee Williams are talking about.
so,
Julie,
We
I
forgot
would
that
do the
one.
same.
He agrees.
Quick,
well, what, you know, what Dan said, I mean, you know, maybe we gotta just kick this over and,
I'm gonna
I
suggest,
still, I don't know. if
you know, I can call it to a vote, but it's probably gonna be a tie if I'm reading the room
there's no
right,
liquor license created, so you couldn't get it.
you know?
I have a question. Does anyone?
would just
I
kn-
think
table
this
it.
is something we need to wait.
Does anyone
Yeah.
know
But I'm-
what the state requirement is
And I don't
with
know.
regard to, like, the liquor store on 60 and Mundelein? Can someone under 21 go in there to buy soda, Slim Jims,
Then we
Oh, I'm
whatever?
sure they,
I don't
I
know.
think so.
oh, I don't see why not.
Yeah,
push that, get that 2,000.
I think so, but
I
I'll
would
check for
believe
you.
so, too.
Yeah, I believe
Yeah,
they
yeah,
do.
you
I not only can, I think I've seen them in there.
Yeah, the old man
Yeah,
sends you to
right.
get ice,
So then amend
You
the
know,
ordinance.
get
and
some
go for
mixers or
2,000.
something, I mean, they're not gonna not sell it to the kid.
Okay,
What do you think, Chief?
you're bringing back memories of
Yeah,
the
I'm
other
pretty
things
sure
they
they
used
let
to
you
send
in.
us to the store to bring back.
They're gonna stay,
Yeah.
Yeah, they'll bring us back a pint,
Go
okay?
get some stuff,
Remember, you
you
don't
know,
create
go get some olives.
Dad wanted me to.
I get that when I visit my uncles. I was raised on farm. I
Okay,
didn't-
all right, well, we're gonna, is there a motion to table this for
Mayor-
another meeting?
He's got another
Oh, wait,
Well,
legal has a
Well,
question.
well, I think, and jump in, but
Rubbing
but
your head.
what we should do, if you want to discuss it some more, just so there's no confusion, is maybe repeal the existing ordinance, so we don't have that 2,000
Then start
square
off from
foot.
scratch.
Yeah,
I
and
think that
then
would be
I
wise.
agree.
Bring it up when we'll just put it on the consent agenda. I think everyone agrees that they don't want the 2,000. Should we
need
just
a-
get rid of that
Oh,
ordinance?
okay, I mean,
And-
The one that's
Eliminate the
in
The ordinance
that's
that
not
currently
scratched,
exists,
throw it away.
repeal it in total, and
the
then.
Class N,
Pardon?
Yes,
Class N?
Yeah,
I think it's
right.
in.
Repeal that totally, yeah.
And then.
So you need a motion to direct staff to prepare the necessary ordinance to repeal the Class N license, eliminating it from the available options within the Vernon Hills Liquor License Code.
That would be an
a
excellent
motion?
motion.
That would be the motion.
Second,
Motion is
I'll
second.
third it.
If no further comments or questions, roll call.
Trustees Markwart,
Aye.
Schultz,
Aye.
Schwartz,
Aye.
Williams,
aye.
Hebda, Cook.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Now,
Okay,
Okay.
Mr. President, do we wish to discuss this, though, at a future, or do we want to just table this until?
I don't have
We'll
a
say-
problem discussing it in the future in the form that I originally brought it up.
Right, I was looking, I
And-
thought we were
and-
talking about a separate,
In all honesty, staff,
Storefront.
council, I don't know how we evolved into the 2,000 square foot range.
I think we just picked the 2,000, let's just say
Yeah,
that
okay,
is
well-
the number, and it just happens two other parties are eligible.
2030.
I mean,
Yeah.
there's not a lot of magic, I don't think.
And then
behind
that changed the intent
Right,
of Manny,
Yes, it did.
right?
he took a
Because
look
the
at it.
Well,
lower
not to me.
cost.
And
So-
then, and then frankly, as you all said, it evolved when the chief and I and Mike and John talked. We thought that, wait, having this enclosed space where it's just monitored by a few cameras with nice grainy black and white images is not a way to go. If you really want to secure it from people shoplifting, and maybe it would be youth or whatever, you really want it open, the cashier to have kind of control over that whole thing, and especially if
Well,
they're
yeah, I don't have an
half-pints
issue
and
with,
pints.
okay, you're saying kind of like a 360 kind of cashier station.
Right.
No.
7-Eleven has one.
No.
But still,
Well, but
But
not,
still-
not
Or
public
if
access to
you
the
had it
liquor.
secured, like trustee Schultz said, in a cabinet or within the counter area, so you'd have to hand the customer that bottle, then you'd have some, and obviously you don't have that control over beer and wine, but, you know,
But they're,
it's an existing.
because of the lower alcohol content,
Right, and
they're
they're larger
less desirable to
package.
shoplift as opposed to a half pint that if,
but, whoa. If wait, from a setup of the store, you could just have, you know, wouldn't we put all the beer and all the wine in the same space that was discussed with
Well,
me?
That's what
Mike,
we
I don't
said.
believe though they were talking about moving those beer coolers,
yes,
were
they-
they?
Yeah, they were.
Yeah.
The one-
Yeah, if they
Yeah.
were gonna have a full liquor license, then it would have been required that beer, wine, and liquor all be in that separate
Right.
space.
One area.
And they would have moved, they would have moved
And then
those.
if, you know, and if they still wanted to have pints, I have no issue putting it behind the cash register, because, you know, instead of doing one of these. But I mean, if you're selling the 750s and if the handles, okay. I mean, those will be at a shelf, you know? Anyway, okay, well,
So you want to repeal it, and we'll put it
Oh, we just
on the
did.
committee, right, put it on the
Bring it
committee of
back
the
to the
whole
board.
Yeah.
Yeah,
for
not on-
discussion?
Yes.
yeah,
not
bring it
on
back
the-
to the board, but I mean, what?
Repeal it to the board,
Yeah.
but to
Right.
discuss
Yeah, well-
this further at committee, not
Right.
at board.
Right.
Right.
Well, that's what I mean, we gotta bring what we just did back to the board for it to be,
Right.
but that'll just be
For
part of the
action.
omnibus.
For just right, consent agenda, just
Right.
action.
all right. Okay. All right, that's fine. Well, is there a motion
That's
to
it.
adjourn and go into closed session to
So moved.
discuss
Second.
personnel, litigation, potential litigation,
Who's on
threatened
first?
litigation?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, wait, we got a motion, a second,
Yeah,
roll
we do.
call.
Trustee
You
Schultz,
got two seconds.
Aye.
Ford, Williams,
Aye.
Pevdek, Cook,
Aye.
Markort.
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay,
All right, how do you
the
turn
meeting's
this thing
adjourned.
off?
And we won't be coming out to discuss anything.